Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ron Ward. Ron, you feeling okay? You didn't put an adjective in front of your name today.
You know, I forgot it. Or maybe I'm back on my modesty kick. I'm not sure. It's one or the other.
Nice.
I'm doing great, Kristin. Excited about this episode.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I'm excited. So you're back from Austin. You're going to share with us a story that is in line with what we're talking about today. And for those listening, if you've listened to us before, you've likely noticed that we are not afraid to confront the uncomfortable truths about leadership and organizational dynamics. And today we're tackling a pervasive issue, and that's the reluctance of leaders to give recognition.
Yeah, and recognition is often touted as simple, a cost-free way to boost morale and productivity, yet many leaders are hesitant to offer it. As a matter of fact, I just had an experience in Austin that Kristin mentioned that I thought would be worth telling. It was so timely. Mm-hmm. So I'm at a place called the Horseshoe Bay Resort, and it turns out Uber would not run up there to take me back to Austin. So I had to get a private car, which it's about time, but that's another story. I got a private ride. So I walked out, and of course I don't want to miss my flight. And this young guy drives up, and he jumps out, and he is like wiping stuff down, grabs a vacuum. I don't even know where it was that they use. Starts vacuuming out. I look at it. I don't see a speck. I said, "Hey man, I think this looks great. Let's roll." He said, "Nope, I always make sure that it's very clean for my guests." So then he comes running out. He's got 2 bottles of water, puts it in nice and cold, you could tell. So we get in and start driving. He was probably 32 years old. He did nothing but brag on the company, told me how much he enjoys serving people.
Wow.
He said when other people don't want to work the elevator, he said, "I do, because I say to myself, I'm going to meet someone interesting today, or I'm going to be able to help someone today." I was so inspired, Kristin. By the time we got there, I told him, I said, "I want you to get your supervisor's email to me." So he and I exchanged information. And of course, I tipped him, but he got me his supervisor's information. I sent a very nice email. As soon as I got home, I sent it because I didn't want to forget. Yeah. I get a nice email back from his supervisor that validated everything I said. He really was that stellar employee. And I felt so good about that. But I think it's interesting. We're going to talk about, you don't want to miss it. We're going to talk about a little bit about the human brain when you compliment someone and what happens. So it was just a great story and so timely, Kristin.
It really is. And sounds like the dream employee. And it's not like he was being recorded. He's speaking positive about his company, unprovoked. He's not being recorded to where he knows that he's being listened to, right? So that is. But what I really like is the fact that you took the time to ask for that information, to make sure that his supervisor knew how wonderful of an experience it was. And, some people do that. Not a lot do, though. They definitely do when something is a negative experience. And so that's why we see a lot of reviews out there that are very imbalanced. So kudos to you for living out what you teach, right? I think that's huge. So we're going to talk about the psychological roots of withholding recognition. And to really understand why some leaders do withhold recognition, we need to explore the psychological factors at play. One significant factor is insecurity. We've talked about that a lot. There are a lot of leaders that are insecure, and leaders who lack this self-confidence, they may fear that praising others will overshadow their own contributions or diminish their authority.
Yeah, it definitely displays their insecurity, even though they don't know it. But it does lead to a scarcity mindset where leaders view recognition as some finite resource that you shouldn't give away unless someone saves the planet. They worry that by acknowledging others, they're giving away their own power or status. And it's just a misconception. Recognition is not a zero-sum game.
I mean, another factor is the desire for control. That's another topic we see a lot. Some leaders believe that withholding praise keeps employees striving for that approval. And it maintains this power dynamic that favors the leader. However, this approach can absolutely backfire, leading to a decreased motivation and trust within the team. I've seen it.
Yes. And then there's the issue of projection. A lot of leaders think, well, I didn't receive praise and look where I am, so I'm certainly not going to give it away. And it's almost like that, the old saying, like, I walk to school uphill both ways. It makes people look old. Yeah, in the snow. It makes people look not only insecure, but old-fashioned. Yeah. And they think, I didn't need it, so I'm not giving it away.
I mean, also, some leaders operate under the belief that paychecks are sufficient recognition. We've seen so many stats that say otherwise. There's a lot of people that instead of a raise, they would like to be publicly recognized. And so these leaders, they assume that financial compensation alone should motivate employees, which is completely overlooking that human need for appreciation and validation.
Yeah, there's a study done once, Kristin, that said that financial, like a bonus or a raise, usually changes morale for 2 weeks, and then people reset. They go back to their default. So you get 2-week bump there, and then it's back to business as usual. I found that to be very interesting.
Oh, absolutely. It is.
So let's look at a little historical context. We'll talk about the evolution of workplace recognition. Historically, during the Industrial Revolution, the focus was on efficiency and output. No surprise there. Workers were seen as cogs in a machine with little regard of their emotional or psychological needs. Recognition was virtually non-existent. The prevailing attitude was that a job and wage were reward enough. And I actually teach this in leadership training. I tell people that we want to change from command and control to coaching. And coaching is regular feedback. Command and control is, here's your orders, get it done, that's it.
Oh my goodness.
And it just doesn't do well with today's workers. And it probably didn't do well then, but people didn't have a lot of choices. And they didn't have the internet where they could find out someone else does it better. So
yeah. Oh, you're spot on. I mean, the mindset you just talked about, that command and control, that persisted well into the 20th century. And the rise of scientific management, spearheaded by Frederick Taylor, it emphasized productivity over people. Workers' contributions were measured, but rarely acknowledged in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I was talking to a leader once. He said, I'm after maximum output, maximum output. He said that over and over. And I said, you realize if you would take care of the emotional well-being of your employees, it's going to facilitate you getting to that maximum output that you always talk about. But he didn't see the human behind it. He's just looking at the numbers and the figures.
Yeah.
So anyway,
so many do that.
Yeah. It wasn't until the mid-20th century that psychologists like Abraham Maslow introduced theories highlighting the importance of esteem and belonging in the workplace. Maslow's hierarchy, which I use a lot, of needs underscored that beyond basic survival, humans crave recognition and respect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, despite these insights, many organizations were very slow to adapt. Some still are. And the legacy of early industrial practices left a lasting impact. And with recognition often viewed as unnecessary or even counterproductive, if you can imagine that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's look at a case study when a lack of recognition leads to failure. So we're going to look at some real world examples where the absence of recognition had tangible negative effects. One notable case is that of Kodak, and I didn't tell you this, Kristin, but I grew up not too far from the Kodak headquarters.
Oh, really?
In Tennessee, yes. Once a giant in the photography industry, Kodak failed to acknowledge and reward the innovative ideas of its employees, particularly regarding the shift to digital technology. This lack of recognition and support for internal innovation contributed to the company's decline and eventual bankruptcy. They're stuck on Polaroid cameras and regular cameras, and they literally had leaders come to them saying this digital world is here to stay, or it's coming on and it's here to stay. And they had a blind eye to it. So there you go.
Exactly. I mean, Blockbuster ignored the insights. We do have one here in Bend, Oregon, which is super funny, but ignored those insights and efforts of employees who recognized the potential of digital streaming by not valuing these internal perspectives and failing to adapt. And Blockbuster lost its market dominance. I mean, it's gone. Like I said, there's one left to companies like Netflix.
I so miss Blockbuster. I used to
I
take my daughters
know,
there, and I
same.
would say, just, I kept them away from one little section, and I would say, just shop around. We would make it an hour just picking out a movie.
Yes.
Kristin, in my online, shameless plug, online leadership course, I use Blockbuster as an example of the lack of
Nice.
innovation.
I
On the
know.
on the flip
Well, I
side
was
of
gonna say, do you
oh, go
remember
ahead.
it had like red vines everywhere? All the candies were just placed. There was like popcorn. So it was like you had all your snacks right there too.
Yeah.
It
I
was
will tell you, though, I
amazing.
did pay a lot of late fees in my day, which is no surprise to anyone if you listen to the podcast. Um,
I owe
cash those late.
the local library money right now, actually.
I'm
So
so glad.
yeah.
I don't want you to mention where I lived to that one store in Oregon. They're probably looking for me. There's probably a wanted poster or
Oh
something.
my gosh.
On the flip side, companies that prioritize recognition see remarkable results. For instance, Google has cultivated a culture of appreciation, leading to high employee engagement and innovation. Their peer to peer recognition program empowers employees to acknowledge each other's contributions, fostering a collaborative environment. Now, Kristen, there's a part of the brain, the ventral striatum, that when dopamine and adrenaline is released, it promotes creativity. So, in other words,
Mm.
as you compliment someone, they get a dopamine hit, and it is accompanied with adrenaline. And not only does it make them feel good, it makes them even more creative. And Chris and I will
Mm.
say this: we had a weekly award that we gave at the Academy. I mentioned this one other time. It's called "I'm Kind of a Big Deal" award, and it's a little trophy.
I like
And
it.
the teams, you got to vote every week. Now we had a few little rules, like you couldn't win every week, that kind of thing, or back to
Yeah.
back. But the instructors would vote, and someone would get that award, and it was pretty cool. It was fun. It was in people's office, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was cool. And
It
now
those things go far.
I think they do too. I didn't know all of the psychological stuff then that I do now, but I certainly knew it boosted morale.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I have to tell you, I mean, this is going back to when I was 19, 20 years old, and I managed a small telemarketing firm. I mean, when I say small, I probably had 12 employees that worked under me, and I was very young. But I knew even at that age how great it felt to be recognized. And so what I did, and I'm working with zero budget, right? I would do for whoever booked the most referrals that day, I would cut out stars and put their name on the star and then post it at the top of the office. Like, so it was basically like bordering the office space that we were in. And you don't even understand. I mean, nothing came with it. There wasn't a monetary gain. It was literally you get to be the star of the day and it goes up in a public place. People were so ambitious to have the star of the day. It's just wild. So it just really shows you
It
what
does.
recognition can do.
And Kristen, we've talked a lot. You have to establish a baseline. You have to know your employees, because in federal law enforcement, we certainly had former military people who, worked for me.
Who
And
might not care about a star of the day.
well, that's true. Yeah, you do have to be careful there. Hey, here's you some
Yeah.
roses. Go enjoy.
Yeah, know your audience.
You do have to know your audience, but this is the common denominator, though. The military people liked very clear communication. If you start hedging and saying, well, we're really busy because you're leading up to having them work extra, they don't want that. They're like, what do you
Yeah,
need me? Tell me what you need me to do.
right.
Where am I supposed to be? So they like direct communication. But no matter who it was or their background, they still appreciated recognition. Hey, you did a great job yesterday. Nice work. And I could tell they would light up. So it doesn't matter the background. Those compliments will go a long ways.
I bet that audience. So did they prefer a private compliment, more like an email or one-on-one? Or did you have that? Did they enjoy the recognition in front of peers?
Kristin, it's interesting that you said they, because it's really an individual basis. And because I used to kind of think that way, but I had some people that have been in the military, they were soft and sweet. And, so you just gotta know your people.
Interesting.
You
Yeah.
gotta know your people.
Yeah. There's a lot of dynamics to it.
Yep.
So in addition to what we've been talking about, fostering a culture of peer-to-peer recognition. Also, we've been talking a lot about leader to employee recognition, but that peer-to-peer recognition can amplify the benefits. And when team members acknowledge each other's efforts, I've seen it play out in my classroom, in my middle schoolers' classroom. When they recognize each other, it's a beautiful thing. It creates this supportive and collaborative environment.
It really is. And this accentuates what we've already talked about. But in our executive coaching, we have all these surveys, and they're all short because people are busy. But there's one that I recommend to employers that people can take, that it shows how they like to be communicated with, how they like to be appreciated. So if you do have someone that's very private, it will come out in that assessment when they take it. But most of the time, people are okay. Like I also did a newsletter, and you might note who was the winner of the I'm a Big Deal, I'm kind of a big deal award. Most people are okay with that. But we did have a couple people that did not want to be mentioned. And if you don't get to know your people, you're not going to know that. But we need to tailor the approach that demonstrates genuine appreciation and the way they like to be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've talked a lot about different surveys that you can take or personality tests. I used to do the strengths finders when I had a new employee. So during onboarding, like the first week, I had them take that strengths finder, and it usually told me within how they would like to be recognized, or you could draw the conclusions with their answers. But what did you guys do in the government? Did you have anything like that helped you assess?
Yeah, we had everything from DISC. I brought, it's called colors, true colors now.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone's assigned a color. As a matter of fact, when I was in Austin, that group of people, they have their color on their email. So it's part of their signature. And I thought that's pretty cool that I know if you're green, I'm going to know how to communicate with you. So I complimented them. I thought it was a great idea. So
is that the one where green's analytical?
I think so. It's been a long time since I took that. But it may be.
Oh my goodness. I love that, because I was blue and then I had a red moment, which was a little more risk taker. Blue's like family and loves pets and all of that. Anyways,
well,
I love the color test.
Broad leaders, and as you move up, like, in a quadrant of personalities, I had to get way more analytical as I began to do budget and, acquisition plans and all that. So I saw my personality evolve, and quality leaders can function in any of those colors or any of those dynamics, but you do have to be able to read people. I tell everyone, if you got someone that's really analytical, they don't want a bunch of pleasantries. But if you get someone that's very social, they do want pleasantries. So you balance it. And you and I talked about, I think it's one of our best episodes, but it was attached to the holidays. So I think it might have minimized it a little, but we talked about conversation matching and how one person's having a practical conversation, someone else may be having a social conversation. You have to meet them at the social level, do subtle mirroring, and work them back up to the practical.
Yes.
It's a real thing.
I love that. We'll have to do that again.
We're going to have to.
And roll it out when it's not around the holidays, because that is tough. People take a little podcast break, I think.
Yeah.
But, okay. So while recognition is generally positive, we've talked about this, knowing your audience, it's important to be aware of the potential pitfalls. There's inauthentic or excessive praise that can come across as insincere or undermining trust. So you want to be aware of that.
Yeah, because here's the key. If a leader isn't balanced, if you're not equitable, it can be perceived as favoritism. As a matter of fact, I knew these, and I liked the concept, but they would give awards at the end of the year. But inevitably, it created friction, because there's always someone believes they deserved an award, but this person brown-nosed more than we did, or the manager wasn't as aware of our contribution. So I do see both sides of that, but it was still cool. I I was speaking there, and the executive asked me to stay to watch the awards.
Oh,
And
wow. That's awesome.
so I stayed, yeah, but I could see a little friction. So
Yeah. See, I'm like, that's awesome because I love peeling back the onion and being able just to watch interactions. But oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah, that would be interesting. Leaders should also avoid using recognition as a substitute for other forms of support, such as fair compensation or professional development. So we mentioned earlier that compensation isn't everything. And though it's not, that doesn't mean that people don't want a raise as they move up and move on, right? You still have to keep that in mind. It's not just recognition over everything. So, like you said, balance.
yeah, and people get to know you, and they begin to realize there's some managers who give compliments, and there's no depth. I really appreciate you. And they move on. All they're doing is manipulating you to take your next assignment. So people will see through you if you're giving those compliments that you don't really mean.
Right, exactly. Especially if it's somebody that you've been coaching on things, someone that needs to do better in so many areas, and then you're overcompensating because you might feel bad, and so you're giving them recognition about maybe how wonderful they are to have on the team because they bring in donuts every Wednesday, right? But then they're not getting their work done, their share of the work done. So it's like in their mind, it might cancel out the other. And so you have to be careful with that as well.
Yeah, yeah. And we've talked a little bit about the neuroscience. We mentioned dopamine, and I've talked before about the amygdala and how the amygdala stores memories. And your brain is always firing, and these neurotransmitters. But you, like literally now with AI, you can watch, and in a complementary situation, it ignites, which is, the dopamine drizzle we talked about. They call it the feel-good neurotransmitters. And so the brain is igniting when you do that, and it enhances mood. It doesn't last forever, of course, but it does enhance mood. It can enhance morale. Yeah. And if someone feels good about themselves, the job, their supervisor, they're going to make other people feel good. So, it just keeps going. It's a domino effect. And so anyway, and it also reinforces the behavior that led to the recognition, promoted repeated positive actions.
Ding again. Yeah, no, that's big right there. That's from, what is that from? Groundhog Day. Bing again. Yeah. Anyhow, but no, that is huge right there. Consistent recognition contributes to the development of psychological safety within teams. And, we talked a few episodes ago about how people that people that would just get this sick feeling on Sundays because they knew they had to go into the office on Mondays. And personally, I've had that once or twice before, but not ongoing. But imagine if they were going into the office and receiving recognition for hard work that they've achieved, right? And so that helps in so many ways. So this psychological safety is going to alleviate that. And when employees feel safe and valued, they're going to be more likely to take risks and share ideas with you and with the team and contribute to innovation.
Kristin, I'm so glad you said that. And this is free. If you're a manager and you're listening, we don't think about the Sunday night effect. And it happens all the time. I was coaching someone, and this person told me they break out in hives on Sunday night. They don't sleep. So they're not at their best on Monday. And if leaders and managers would realize that, they should try to make Monday a soft landing if you can. If you're going to do something fun, do it on Monday, because now I don't mean a lot of time, but your compliments and everything, because Kristin, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I laid many Sunday nights thinking about what I had to do the next day. It's like those 2 days you feel like it's all piling up. Monday, of course, was a hectic day in training. And even when I was a U.S. probation officer, you're always concerned that somebody did something over the weekend and you're going to have to deal with it. So if managers would be aware of that Sunday night fog and try to be a little extra sensitive on Mondays, I think it would help. And I love what Gary Vee said. He said, if you get to the place where you can't wait for Monday because you're not doing anything productive on Saturday and Sunday, if you said, if you can get to the point where man, I can't wait for Monday. I'm looking forward to Monday. I get to start off strong on Monday. And if you can get that to be your mindset, he said, there's nothing can stop you. But unfortunately, the Sunday night blues are real.
Oh, yeah. I remember even my dad as a teacher, I feel bad saying this, but he taught kids for 30, 35 years. And he was just like me. He didn't want to go to school on Monday. So, yeah, the struggle is real. And, really understanding the importance of recognition is one thing. And we've covered that here. But implementing it effectively is another. And leaders should aim for to be specific in their praise instead of a generic good job. You just talked about this, Ron. Like people know if you're just going through the motions versus actually meaning it. And generally, and I don't know if you did this, I'm sure you did, but I would say you did a great job with X, Y, Z, and then I would carry on to one more detail. That way they knew exactly what I'm recognizing them for, not just one overarching good job. And when they know what specifically stood out to you as their leader, again, to your point, they're going to continue with that behavior. So when you've highlighted those particular actions and that their impact it's going to make recognition more meaningful that you're giving them.
Yeah, it's very true. You need to be very precise in what they did right, and that does affect the dopamine drizzle. But when I mentioned the amygdala stores good memories and bad memories. And I tell people especially who have a lot of bad memories, is to start unloading that file cabinet in their brain with all that negativity, get rid of it and start putting positives. And we forget to remind ourselves, of, I did a good job on that. That was a good email. And when that's validated by your supervisor, I saw what you did on that project. That was a great job. And you're specific. They know you mean it because you didn't just throw something generic out. You looked at their work, you appreciated their work, you acknowledged their work. Right. And that goes much deeper than just saying, good job.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So let's talk about timeliness here. Timeliness is also crucial. Recognizing contributions promptly ensures that the application is relevant and reinforces desired behaviors. Think of like a bull scraping their foot on the ground. As soon as you see something great, you should make a point to recognize while it's fresh.
That's exactly right. And something else, when you're talking about timeliness, is I use the example when we say go from command and control to coaching. I say a coach is giving regular feedback. Can you imagine if let's say you're a basketball player and your coach comes in at the end of the season and says, hey, in game 2, you shouldn't have taken that shot. Game 3, you should have played better defense. It means nothing. But you got to be right there in the action, in the game, and go, come on, you got to play defense. And so before we end, I know there's always some leaders who think you're being naive when you talk about compliments. We are not talking about complimenting people for showing up to work. We're not talking about complimenting people for doing their duties. And I do know this was a conversation. Unfortunately, Gen Zers, if you're listening, it was about you that this employer told me their Gen Z people wanted to be complimented for everything. And that is not what we're talking about.
How cute.
People should probably show up to work without getting an award. But anyway, all right, let's wind down.
Yeah. I mean, we want to challenge you to reflect on your own practices, a leader or an individual contributor. Are you recognizing your peers, your employees? Are you providing recognition that your team deserves? What about even real life example, Ron? You're not even in charge of that guy, the driver, but you took the time to recognize him because he went above and beyond. And that's the kind of behavior we're talking about that absolutely deserves that recognition. And if you're not doing that, what is holding you back? So remember, recognition is a powerful tool. I can't say that enough. That's both free and transformative.
Yeah. And Kristin, I'm going to end on this. I was not going to tell this story. I wrestled throughout the podcast, but I'm going to tell it. I had a lady contact me. I don't even remember this. We went to the same church when I lived in Charleston, West Virginia. She said that I bought food, groceries. I don't remember it. She has constantly, you will see her all over my social.
Like you bought it for her?
Yes, I bought
Aw.
for her, and she was using it for something. And she says I did some other things. It's not about me, but I want to tell you the power of it is she was taking it upon herself to literally in the mall put together a conference and have me be the keynote speaker.
Oh, wow.
So when I realized, she sent me the email, and I realized this is going to be like, I just did a conference. I know how difficult it is. So
Yeah.
I actually scheduled a phone call, and I said, look, I said, I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't remember buying you that stuff. I don't even remember it. But if I did, pay it forward. That's all I want you to do.
Right.
You owe me nothing, zero. So let's not worry about a conference. Let's not worry about anything, but you help someone else who needs to be helped, and everything will be good. And that's exactly that should be our motto, is we do it
Yeah.
because it's the right thing to do. I don't expect anything from this driver, although I told Kristin it's funny that I didn't know at the time, I'm going to be back there in June.
Perfect.
The same resort, same place. So I will try to say hello to this guy, but we should just do things. I think about when you think back to my Boy Scout leader who just volunteered for no reason. He just, took us on some trips because I grew up in the middle of nowhere and there was nothing to do. So I still remember his kindness. I remember the people who invested in me along the way. And you should just keep paying that forward. You just keep doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And then you are going to produce great leaders who are also going to be able to be equitable and share compliments, and everybody wins. That's how life should work.
Yes. That's a beautiful thing when you watch it play out, and people don't realize the impact. I mean, a lot of us can remember compliments that we received, especially in our youth and teen years. They stick with you for a long time, if not forever.
They really do. Oh, this was wonderful. It's a shame we have to do a podcast on this, but
that's a good point. Yeah.
But yeah, they're out there.
Oh yeah.
Maybe if you didn't need this, pass it on. Tell someone about it.
Yeah, there's your pay it forward.
Yeah, there's your pay it forward.
Pay it forward for us too. There's share the episode.
All right, everybody, be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.